Hello and welcome to Conversations with Dr. Greer. This is Dr. Stephen Greer, the director of the Disclosure Project and the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And I'd like to thank the folks at the World Fusion Network for hosting us here every 2 weeks to give you an update and share some of the experiences that we're having and the programs that we're conducting around the world to establish a time of universal peace and higher consciousness, and also to bring out the new energy systems that will be the foundation of a prosperous and just new civilization on Earth. And I'm very excited about tonight, the show, because we have with us two incredible people who have been such an important part of the work in Canada for a number of years, who have helped in so many ways. Many of you know one of them by her name, Anael. It's Annie Tremblay, who's a brilliant and beautiful musician and singer, and also Claire Cormier, who is an amazing remote viewer and empath and psychic, and both are members of our team in the Montreal, Canada area. And I want to say over the years, express some gratitude here to both of these wonderful people, because they've helped me so much in Montreal when I've gone up to that city to do lectures and workshops and meetings, and really many of them I could not have done at all without them. So thank you, Annie and Claire, for all of your help and support over the years.
Well, it's always been a pleasure and a great experience to have you around us, too, Steve.
And I thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, well, and thanks for being on the show. And what we're going to cover today, there's been a Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, or CE5, contact group in the Montreal area that both Claire and Annie and some others have been involved with over the years. And what we're going to do is share some of the experiences they've had. Frequently we talk about the experiences that we have when we're doing trainings out in the field all over the world with larger groups. But this is a really good account of the sort of things that people have experienced when they go out for a night or a weekend and make contact. And for those of you who haven't heard this show before, one of the programs that we have, and in addition to the Worldwide Disclosure Project, which you can see at disclosureproject.org, is the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence at CSETI.org, CE5 initiative. And CE5 means a close encounter of the fifth kind. And this is when humans come together as a group to make peaceful contact with interstellar civilizations, and for the purpose of establishing universal peace and to establishing a time when indeed humanity will be out amongst the stars in a peaceful and enlightened fashion. And we know that the time for this has arrived, even though perhaps the world leadership is lagging a little bit, but nevertheless most people understand that we're not alone in the universe, and in fact we're already being visited, and that it's time for people to step forward. And in the absence of any coherent, and I might say cogent and relevant, diplomatic effort on the part of the United Nations or the foreign ministries of Canada or Great Britain or the Secretary of State of the United States or any other country, we feel it's really important to have a citizens' diplomacy effort that is rooted, however, in the ancient Vedic knowledge of higher states of consciousness. And since we're on the World Fusion Network, I have to say that while we use high-powered lasers and electronic beeping tones that we project out into space over radio signals, the key part of the component of the contact protocol that we use is consciousness, the ability to experience silent awareness, and then through the eye of oneness, the conscious mind within, to see remote places in space and to contact these extraterrestrial civilizations, and then to, if you will, vector them or show them where we're located and invite them to make contact. And it has been very effective over the years because of the simple fact that if you're traveling from one star system to another, you are going to be using both energy systems but also communication systems that travel faster than the speed of light and interface directly with what we call coherent thought. And what I mean by coherent thought is not just random thought from a superficial level of thinking, but in the true Vedic sense of the word, coherence and resonance of mind, and even group consciousness in meditation, where then the contact is happening from a very deep level of awareness, where the thought is emanating from an expanded state of consciousness, which is really the omnipresent field of pure consciousness that's within all of us. And this is why it works, is because when an interstellar civilization, no matter how sophisticated their technology may be, is communicating across vast distances, they're using a type of electromagnetic system that interfaces directly with coherent thought. And years ago, when I was briefing the CIA director and his wife was the head of the National Academy of Sciences, or the chief operating officer of that, she asked me how would the ETs be communicating between star systems and from Earth to their home system. And I explained that it had to do with all of this information that is beyond the crossing point of light, which we go into a great deal in the most recent book, which is called Contact, Countdown to Transformation. And she really understood this. And I feel we're at a time in history where more and more people really do understand that in order to make contact and to understand how contact will proceed in all the unusual ways, that we have to have a really firm and deep understanding of consciousness. So this is a wonderful show to discuss this on, because the World Puja Network, of course, deals with consciousness and higher states of awareness, and that is central to the contact protocol. So with that little bit of introduction, I'd like to invite Anael and Claire to share with you the sort of experiences they've had over the years with the CSETI CE5 effort.
Claire, do you want to start, or I'm going to start? Because my portion is very short.
Okay.
It started when you came to Bromont for the workshop that I prepared for the 3 days training. The first meditation we did, and from the start, I was hearing your voice directly in my ear, and you were about 60 feet in front of me. So it was kind of impossible for that to happen. And I didn't hear any leaves or wind or crickets, nothing. And we were outside, and usually there is sounds. And after a while, I heard, at the end of the meditation, I heard a tone, like a bell, playing, but constantly.
Right.
And you were starting to talk again, like to come out of the meditation, and it was just over your voice. And I looked at my buddy, Ricky Butterfast, that was beside me, and I asked him, does he have a bell? And he said, no, and he started laughing. He said, oh, it happens all the time. I said, oh, okay, that's weird. And we had this beautiful, alleged star, how do you call that? An étoile filante.
Shooting star.
Shooting star. A huge, very thick shooting star at the horizon at our left.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like about 3 miles long, the tail of it. So that and everybody said, "Oh, wow!" And that was the first introduction to the workshop, and it was great.
Well, I want to comment on the tone, because there were other people who heard aspects of that, and the hearing my voice as if I'm sitting next to you. Charlie Balag has described this as an anechoic chamber, and what happens is that when there is a trans-dimensional ship around us, in other words, an extraterrestrial vehicle that's around us but that is resonating, or the frequency of it is faster than the speed of light, faster than matter, faster than electrons, you get this echo effect. We also get an effect where the temperature actually will go up, as if you're in a dome, but it looks like you're in clear air. And as I was explaining recently on this show, we were last year in Joshua Tree National Park, and it was 34 to 36 degrees out in the desert with wind and everything. And within a few minutes, when we had this contact happen with this ET from Andromeda, that the picture of which is up on the CSETI.org website, we had this amazing thing happen where the temperature went up to 69 degrees. It went up over 30 degrees, 35 degrees within a few minutes. We were actually taking jackets off because we were very bundled up because it was cold. And at other times, we have had this experience where we have had the same kind of sound effect. For example, in Crestone last year, we were at a site, and there were very, very far away, there was a stream through the desert, but it was many miles away. But because we were in this sort of space-time bubble, and we were having this contact experience with the ETs that were there in a trans-dimensional way, everyone heard that as if we were sitting a foot or two away from a roaring stream. And it was very bizarre. Everyone heard this. And so these sort of things happen a great deal on these expeditions. And once you understand the nature of space and time as being malleable, and that when you're dealing with these trans-dimensional interstellar technologies, these are the kind of unusual things that happen. And then the tonality is so important because recently we've had these amazing tones that we've actually been able to record. I mean, a couple weeks ago, about a month ago, I guess now, in Joshua Tree National Park, we had these amazing tones, crystal clear, that we all heard, and we actually got to record them. And it also happened at Shasta this year. And the tonality, if you understand the Vedas, as you know, Sanskrit is name and form. And what that means is that the tonality manifests the form. But from the tonality, if you go into quiet consciousness, you can actually see the form of the origin of the tone because it manifests the form. And so often an extraterrestrial being or a craft will have its presence there with a tonality. And the tonality can actually be meditated upon, and then you can actually see the craft. In fact, at Shasta, when we had these tones that came through the group that everyone heard, everyone saw what looked like a string of pearls, like a grayish-white spheres that went right through the group. And everyone heard it, and it's like no one could see anything with their eyes, but in their mind's eye, the tone manifested that form, which is precisely, of course, how the Vedic masters would manifest objects. It would be through tonality. And this is, of course, the magic of the mantras. The mantras are actually the sound component of thought. And it's that tonality of the thought that then manifests. And so when we're doing this contact work, that is the sort of things that happen. And, you know, I'm so glad you shared the story, Anael, because I had forgotten, actually, because I do these things.
Well, you do so many.
But I had forgotten that particular experience had happened with the tones on that trip at Bromont when we were doing the training there. Yeah.
Yeah. That
wonderful.
Wonderful, yeah. And sometimes I remember also there was one night where we heard metal over our heads, and you directed the group towards the forest because you felt that they were there. And we some people heard it, and we felt the energy of the ship too.
Oh, yes. So you feel the energy, and we had our electronics that were detecting it, and it was a metallic sound. And what's interesting is that often these extraterrestrial vehicles, they may not fully materialize into linear space-time for security reasons or any number of reasons. However, what we found is that they're always there in some form. And this is where the interface between space and time and then consciousness and remote viewing becomes so important, because they may only give a hint of their presence through a tone or this metallic sound or a light that bursts, and then the mind can then see clearly the entire craft or a group of ETs standing there.
Now, Claire has a very interesting experience to share.
Yes.
About that.
Okay, in Bromont, I'm sitting down and I'm listening to your voice, and I'm zooming out. And as Anael said, she heard a bell, right?
Yeah.
What I received is 3 flashes of light.
Wow.
And this was before my eyes. And when I focused, I saw a ship, and it was cobalt blue,
Right.
And it was in the shape of a Hershey kiss.
Right.
I went, oh, that's interesting. And then I'm kind of in a panic because I cannot hear your voice anymore. It's far, far, far away. And I had to concentrate to re-listen to your voice to come back into the group. So I did that, and there I am back in the group. Great to be back. So I'm going, okay, what just happened here? And then I looked up into the sky, and I saw this configuration. And it was on my left-hand side, and it was an oval shape that had three squares, or rectangulars, I would say, and a rectangular, how can I put it, rectangular squares that was in the shape of like a staircase, as far as the eye could see.
Wow.
And I was just looking at that and going, wow. So the rest of the evening, that's all I could focus on, because I was always compelled to look at this configuration. And after that, I don't know what happened. I don't know the timing. But at one point, there was a silver orb that came towards me. I saw it coming towards me.
Right.
I put my hand up, and this silver orb just passed over my hand. So that was my experience in Bromont.
Right. Yeah, and you know what's interesting about this staircase phenomenon, this has happened before, and in fact, Trudy Geiker, who's a long-term member of our core team that travels all over the world and is always with us on these week-long expeditions, she just recently at Joshua Tree National Park had identical experience to what you're describing. Exactly that. And, in fact, we haven't talked about it until just now. And it was exactly that experience with this, what would appear to be like a staircase that just went off into infinity, almost like an ascension.
Exactly.
And, she was very moved by it. And she knew, what it meant in terms of, higher dimensions being of humanity and the earth moving to that level of resonant frequency of higher dimensions up this staircase, as it were. Beautiful.
And Claire, you saw it again, this configuration.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so what happened, now I don't know if you remember, Dr. Greer, we asked you about Cédrica Provencher, the little girl that went missing in Trois-Rivières.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I was asked as a psychic to join their team. So I did. And
you mean the police team?
The research team.
The research police, yeah.
Right.
And anyway, I gave them a reading, and they found this site. And when we got to the site, it was in Lac-Édouard. There we found a shaman by the name of Pierre that offered to do a vision quest. So we all agreed, okay, yeah, sure, we'll do this vision quest. So we did. And we did the first vision quest. Nothing came of it. We did a second. We had some phenomenons, all right. But we have to go back at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Right. Very important. I want to make a note here. When you get an intuitive hit of a time or a place, follow it, because the ETs often will have a reason for a very specific time and place.
So this is what we did. We went out at 2 a.m., and we were three that went out. So there was myself, the shaman, Pierre, and Pat. We went to the teepee, and as we were walking, I did the CSETI protocols.
Right.
And I turned to the shaman, Pierre, and I said, by the way, I did the CSETI protocols. If there's extraterrestrials that show up, don't be alarmed. I've called them.
Right.
All right, so we go into the teepee, and the shaman does his thing, okay? And all of a sudden, there's these silver orbs that appear. It was like if it was snowing.
Yeah, and don't forget to tell people that it was windy, it was cold, and the teepee was wobbling.
Exactly.
Because there was so much wind.
There was so much wind. Exactly. When we went out, it was raining, it was windy. When we went into the teepee, the top of the teepee was going back and forth. It was raining. And like I said, Pierre did his thing, and all these silver spheres all of a sudden appeared. And it looked like it was snowing.
Right.
There were so many of them. And here's Pat. He's counting them 1, 2, 3, 4, and he lost count. There's so many. And all of a sudden, boom, they're gone. So we figured, oh, okay, they're gone. Now what? All right, so time to go home. So the first one that was out of the teepee was Pat. He goes out. Then I hear, Claire, get out here. So I go out, and I'm looking down. He goes, no, not on the floor. Look up. And I looked up, and I went, oh, my God. Pierre, shaman, get out here. Okay? So he comes out, and here we are, the three of us, looking up into the sky. And here is Pat saying, hey, listen, I'm a hunter. I know this is not an ordinary sky. And I say to him, well, I can tell you, I'm a dental assistant, and I can tell you this is not an ordinary sky. And here's the shaman, Pierre, just, with his arms crossed and just looking up and just taking the whole scenario in. And he says, well, Claire, why don't we try to communicate? I'm like, oh, okay. So
you forgot to tell that there was no more clouds, no more wind.
There was no
more rain.
No clouds. What happened there is I took the search lamp, okay,
mm-hmm.
and I put it up, all right, and I signaled, okay, up 3 times. They signaled back 3 times.
Now, what did you see that was signaling back? Was it an object?
Okay, like I said, this was the same configuration that I saw in Bromont, but it was magnified.
Oh, boy.
It was huge. We could almost touch
the stars.
That's how close it was. When we turned around, all right, on the other side, it was an ordinary sky. It was raining. It was windy, right? We turn around, and there it is. Huge. Now, like I said, it's the same configuration, the oval,
right,
the rectangular, and that staircase.
Right.
What I did is I signaled 3 times with a searchlight to this little star. It was yellow in color. I did it 3 times. It signaled back 3 times. I did it 6 times, and it came back 6 times.
Right. All right.
And here we are, the 3 of us, just looking up, and we had no idea what to do. We were just so mesmerized.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I'm sorry?
These are the kinds of things that happen when, contact and they've told you to be there at that time. And by the way, the phenomenon with the weather is also something that very often happens. We were just recently at Joshua Tree, and the first night it was very cloudy. At a certain time, we were supposed to have contact, and literally an oval of the sky opened and parted, showing the Orion constellation and the Betelgeuse and Rigel, which are the 2 stars on either side of Orion's belt and sword. And almost instantly, there was an object that came in and began to signal for about 23 minutes to us that we filmed that was in the Orion constellation sector of the sky. And the entire sky had been cloudy all night, and then after this, it was cloudy again. And it was almost as if a trans-dimensional energy field had parted the clouds and altered the weather. And we have this happen all the time. We have been in England where we're doing this contact work, and it's raining everywhere and terrible, and we sit down and do the meditation, and literally, I mean, it sounds corny, but the clouds part, it's clear in a circle just above us. The sky is crystal clear, and then these contact events happen. And this is phenomenal. I mean, people who see it for the first time think this is impossible. And if it happened once, you say, well, it's a coincidence. But this has happened dozens and dozens of times all over the world in the most unbelievable climatic settings. And by the way, for people who don't know, Lake Edouard is way north in the Quebec province, I believe.
Yeah, it's between Lac Saint-Jean and Trois-Rivières. It's really lost in the woods.
Right.
Like there was no way to find that place except with Claire. Like she was drawing, for weeks long. Like she had flashes about the buildings of that place, and and she put it all together, and it was a village at the end. And they finally found it. It was 2:00 in the morning, and they called her like all excited. We find it, But you forgot a big part within the teepee, Claire. What happened within the teepee with while you were meditating and you were holding hands and Pierre started to levitate.
Levitate, yes.
And Pat is 6'2", and he had Pierre at the end of his arm, like in the air. Yes. And he was saying to Claire, like, tell him to come down. I'm going to lose him. And Claire had a moment there.
Oh, yes, it was a moment. And actually, I didn't think that I was going to go over this with you this evening because I thought, well, it'd be too much.
No, it's never too much.
No,
we talk about these things all the time.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And remember, Colin Andrews has talked publicly now about the contact they had in a crop circle in 1989 with Pat Delgado, where he was levitated backwards when the CSETI tones, the beeping tones that we see out into space, that experience happened. So this is absolutely part of what happens, this anti-gravity levitation phenomenon. And I have had this happen also. So, it's important to share this.
Yeah, and the lime green beings that you saw, too, inside the teepee. So go over it, please.
Okay, yes, okay. All right.
That's the meat.
That's the meat. Okay.
The meat.
All right. When I was asked to be part of the search for Cedrica, all right, I gave coordinates where things could be found, and they did find, okay? But also, I kept on getting Pronovo, convent, and I'm drawing a water tower. I'm getting a White House. I'm getting 2 other little houses. I'm getting a river. It looks like a farm. So they did find it. It is Lac Edouard. So I got the phone call, as Annie said, at about 2:20 in the morning. Cedrica's father calls me saying, Claire, we found it. Everything that you said, we found it. Exactly. I said, well, now, all right, I need to go and see this. All right. So we go to Lac Edouard, and this is where we find Pierre, the shaman.
Right.
And here we are with a search party, dog included, Elliot, and Pierre offers to do a vision quest. So I agree, and so does Pat, and we go into the teepee, and the shaman Pierre does his thing. The first thing that happens is I hear a clicking, okay?
Right. Right.
And I remember you, Dr. Greer, saying, okay, that is extraterrestrial.
Yes, some of them make that sound as sort of a talking sound, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the second thing that happens is that we have like poofy green phosphoric, poofy clouds, and they're floating around. Pat gets up to touch one, and I say to Pat, don't touch, just put your hands down.
Right.
Right. And then what happens is that Pat comes around and things get disturbed and everything stops. Then we hear small voices, like it sounded like childlike talk, like we couldn't understand.
Right.
And then that stopped. So, okay, that's fine. Great. So we continue. Then what happens is that Pat and the shaman Pierre and I, we join hands. And when we joined hands, there is a sphere that formed in the middle. And we felt like we wanted to like dive into that sphere. And that is when Pierre started to levitate.
Right.
And then we hear the actual scream of a jaguar. And let me tell you, my hair went up on ends.
Right.
Whew, okay. And Pierre says, oh, mais c'est la jaguar. It's a jaguar. I went, oh, that's nice. Mm-hmm. So then Pierre goes down, and Pat says, get off my foot. Pat, I'm not on your foot. He goes, I'm telling you, ow. Okay? Something bites him on his little baby toe.
Uh-huh.
All right? And I went, look, okay, I'm not on you. And Pierre, again, second time, he's levitating.
Right.
Now what's happening is Pat is saying, something is coming up my leg. That jaguar, something is coming up my leg. And he's losing his balance. Now, I'm holding Pat, and Pat is about what, Annie?
6'2", 250 pounds.
Thereabouts, okay? And I'm holding on to him, and Pierre is levitating. So I said to Pierre, Pierre, this would be a really good time to get back down, all right, and take charge of the situation here, okay? So if this is a vision quest, okay, hey, this is your baby. So I just had enough time to grab a chair, all right, and Pat sits down. I let go, and Pierre takes over. And what happens is this jaguar, right, is part of this shamanic thing, vision quest, where you follow the animal. So poor Pat is trying to take flight with the jaguar, but he can't because he's blocked, because he's not used to this. This is the first time this happens to him.
Right.
And it came to a point where I could see psychically that he's in trouble. So I said to Pierre, we have to stop this. So we stopped it, and that was that. We go back to the house, and of course, the whole search party is there when we walk in. So, did you guys get anything? Did you see anything? Well, can you imagine, Steve? Here is Pat, Pierre, and I walking in with our heads down. How can we explain to the rest of the search party what we just experienced?
Right. Yeah.
Complicated.
And then Pat comes around, and he's wearing
reinforced shoes.
Yes, steel cap boots.
Yeah.
Right. He takes his boot off, and his little baby toe is bitten. It's bleeding. That's when I got, Claire, you have to go back at 2 a.m. in the morning.
Right. Yeah, well, the transdimensional aspects of this, I mean, you think of the fact that there are other dimensions, and, of course, shamans and enlightened people from every tradition know this, and the extraterrestrial civilizations cross through these dimensions as a matter of normalcy. As they're going faster than the speed of light, they cross into other dimensions. So this is all part and parcel, and often on these expeditions we'll have not only an extraterrestrial craft and ETs there, but we'll have these other dimensional beings as well as ancestral beings. When we were at Shasta a couple of years ago, we actually had a fully materialized being from millions of years ago on Earth. It wasn't a Homo sapien, but it was an intelligent life form that had existed in the area, and it let out this, it reminds me of the jaguar, it let out this almost primordial cry, and then I answered it, and it answered me back, and everyone heard this. This was 40 people heard this on the slopes of Mount Shasta up at 5,000 feet. And it was part of the gathering and the sort of things that happen as space-time becomes thin, as it were, as the limitations and the barriers of what we would consider the limits of space-time. And so, it often, all of these things happen frequently together, and it makes complete sense once you understand the nature of how contact happens.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we discovered that they have the sense of humor as well.
Oh, very much so.
Because, well, when Claire came back from Lac Edouard, she said, Annie, you have to come with me. But they didn't have any heat in the house, and it can drop to minus 60 Celsius.
Plus.
So it's kind of very cold, and I'm very, very delicate on that.
Right.
To be warm in the winter.
Right.
So I said, there's no way, if there's no heat, I'm going to go there, because I won't be able to spend a weekend. No, forget it. So I didn't go, and she went back and tell them what happened.
Okay, well, just to come back to to the teepee, going back at 2 in the morning, okay, in that configuration. What happened is that at one point Pat left, and there was only Pierre and I left at the teepee, and he was in the teepee gathering things up to leave. I was outside, and I thought, if they understand me, all right, I look up at the oval, and I ask the oval to go to the right.
Right.
Nothing happens. So I just continue putting things in boxes, and then I hear, Claire, look up. I look up, and the oval went to the right, moved to the right.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And I went, Pierre, come out here. Okay? I said, look, I asked it to go to the right. And he looks up, and he says, yeah, it's to the right. I said, now, why don't we ask them to come back to the left? The minute we thought it, the oval didn't come back. There's a ship that came out behind the oval and stopped right on top of us. And that is where I said, thank you for coming.
Right.
And the reason why that we're here is that we're looking for a little girl by the name of Cedrica. And in my mind's eye, I had the picture of her, and I sent that picture to them. And what they did is they sent the picture back to me in my third eye. They understood.
Right.
And I understood that she was gone.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the second time you went back and.
Okay, so after that, right.
With Pat and Claire.
That's right. Okay, so now the second time that we go back, it's about a couple of weeks later. I'm with Pat, and as we're driving into Lac Edouard, I have a feeling of being pulled in to an energy field.
Right.
And Pat says, funny, I see a flash of light. Oh, okay. So we arrive, and at that time, at the same time, Pierre was sleeping. He was woken up with a flash of light himself. So we go in and we sit around the table and we're talking and so on and so forth. And we go to bed. And the next day, like Annie says, it's so cold. We had to have, what are they called?
Heaters.
Heaters in the teepee.
Oh, good.
Warm it up. So we go, it's maybe about 8 o'clock, and we stay about an hour. That's all we could. It was so cold. So nothing is happening. So we get out of the teepee, and Pat says, hey, look. What? Look, there's Annie's name is in the sky.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
We look up, and there it is, A-N-I, Annie. As clear as can be.
Right.
I went, wow.
Right.
So that's what happens.
So they knew that she's part of your group, and they were acknowledging that.
Exactly.
Well, when she came back to Montreal, she told me this. She said, now you have no choice. You have to come. I said, and she said, we saw your name in the sky. I said, what? What? Okay, well.
Yeah, they do have a great sense of humor. You know, this reminds me, a few years ago, we had a group that went to West Virginia, and they were doing this, and suddenly they had seen some trans-dimensional things and subtle things, and someone said, oh, you know, I really want to see E.T. And at that instant, this is, you know, strange credulity, but everyone saw it. The clouds gathered and made the letters E.T. in the sky huge, and everyone saw it. So, you know,
they're really funny.
People, yeah, they have an awesome sense of humor, and you know, given the Star Wars weapon systems we have, they don't always, you know, come in like a Steven Spielberg movie. However, they are absolutely, when you're in the right state of consciousness and you're doing it for peaceful purposes, they're there in ways that are, there are almost too many thousands of ways that they have manifested to even recount them, which is what we actually, in this new book, what we try to do is recount the hundreds of ways, you know, it's as much as you can in 300 or 400 pages, that we have had these kinds of things. And it's called Contact, Countdown to Transformation, and it has a DVD that comes with it that actually shows a lot of the things that have happened, the contact that's happened over the years, and it has the tones that have happened. All this is on the DVD that comes with the book. And
it's a wonderful book, by the way. I read it all, and
it's
great insights about how it works and the approach they can take, and they're very different. Yeah,
if you get that in the meditation CD, that's a separate thing that has the mantra and all of that, you can go out and do this, what they're talking about doing anywhere in the world. I mean, it's wonderful if you can join us for one of these week-long expeditions, but even if you can't, you know, neither Claire nor Anael have had an opportunity to be at a whole week event. They've been at the Bromont event. But, you know, if you understand the basic things and you begin to do it with a pure heart, and it's amazing the things that happen.
And the desire to communicate and to establish contact is a big factor.
Absolutely.
And you forgot to tell that
the CD player.
Not only that, Pat, when he came out of the teepee and nothing had happened, he was complaining about that. He said, well, they didn't come, they didn't show up. Then he saw my in the sky, and then when he went in his car to go back home to Trois-Rivières, his windshield...
Oh, no, hold on.
That was funny.
This is hilarious. He's complaining. The only thing that we saw was Annie in the sky, right?
Yeah.
So the next day, I asked him, okay, can you go in the car and get the CD, Buddhist Spirit? So he goes out, and he comes back, and he's kind of like shaking. Hey, what's the matter? He said, I had to put the ignition in order to get the CD out, and there was a humming noise. He looked up, and there was a column, a huge column of light, red-orange, that he saw.
Right.
Okay? And, okay, fine.
And the CD did a strange sound, too. It was playing
that
weird.
Mm-hmm.
And it scared him.
It scared him, too. He was really, really frightened. And that evening, we did a meditation. Nothing happened. Everything was cool, And he still is very upset. Nothing happened. And we're saying to him, well, hello, Annie's in the sky, your CD player. Okay, but he's still not satisfied. So
not enough.
It's not enough. So now it's time to go. So we're leaving. It's Sunday. Okay, Sunday or Monday. I don't remember. We're leaving, and in Lac-Édouard, there's no lights. You're on a secondary street.
Right.
And here we are, and all of a sudden, he starts saying, Claire, I can't see. What do you mean you can't see? I cannot see. Well, what's happening? I thought maybe is he going into an altered state, He goes, look, the windshield. And I'm looking, and he says, look, it's dark. I can't see. And I look up, and yeah, absolutely, there is a bar, all right, that goes across the windshield, and you cannot see. And here he is saying, now,
this is a bar-shaped object outside the car. Is that?
No, it's not.
No, it's within the windshield. They placed a dark bar. Sometimes you can have that as a something special on your car. Yeah, but he didn't have any because it's too tall. If you have that, he can't see.
He can't.
So it was completely clear, and because. Well, he was complaining too much, I guess. He put this bar in his windshield, and he couldn't see anything anymore to drive during the night.
So that got his attention, yeah.
Well, he was swearing, and tell them he came out of the car with a little Kleenex trying to take it away.
He was, Steve, okay, he says, this is dangerous, okay, and he's swearing in French.
Yeah, right.
And I am laughing so hard, I'm crying. And he's saying to me in French, this is not funny. This is very, very dangerous. They don't understand what they did is dangerous. He says, what am I going to do? I said, well, you know what? You'll have to kind of like crunch down, below the bar and drive that way. And he goes, it's not funny. So we're driving like that. And we get to La Tuque, and there's a way station. And there is a huge light, a lampadaire. And he stops the car. We get out of the car. He doesn't close the door. So just see the scenario. We're out, and the car's going ding, 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 right? And I'm on my side, and I'm looking at the windshield. Now, bear in mind, this car has been in the search for, a few months. The car is scratched. The windshield is scratched. The doors are scratched, okay? The windshield is smooth.
There was no more scratch.
No more scratches. Smooth. And I'm looking, and this bar is dark, smooth, and it's etched in the glass.
Oh, that's fun.
He's on the other side with the Kleenex, you know, trying to wipe it off. Okay, and I'm on the other side saying, "Yeah, Pat, that should do it." Mm-hmm. He goes, "Get in the car," and he is really, really upset. And I'm saying to him, "Well, you know, Pat, you were upset. You're saying, listen, they did not come, but they are showing you that absolutely they were there, they were present." So we're driving to Trois-Rivières. We get into Shawinigan. I hear Claire look up, and on the left, I see the same configuration once again. So now I saw it in Bromont, I saw it in Lac-Édouard, and this is the third time that I see it. Now it's in Shawinigan, the same configuration. So we know that they were present.
Yeah, I'm sure it was the same craft and being.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is what happens. Once people get introduced to, one of the things that we do at these trainings, actually, is that we ask the ETs, these interstellar civilizations, which are working all together, to make a personal contact with everyone there and to develop a relationship that goes onwards to the future. Mm-hmm. And it happens. And, you know, often people are quite astonished about it, where at this last event we had in California, we had a person who did that, didn't think it would be possible. And this is a man from England. And he was sharing a room with another person. And the night that we did this, where we asked all the ETs to make a connection with each person there, he went to sleep, and then he was awakened with, again, a tone. And on the right side of his bed was an ET being, and then a rectangular-like object that was doing some type of energy work on his subtle body and what have you. And then the same tone happened again, moved over to where his roommate was sleeping and was not aware of this going on, at least not consciously. Mm-hmm. And the exact same thing happened, where this contact was happening, and he saw this, you know, fully awake. And these are the kinds of things that happen to people who are ready and who come and understand the consciousness. And this is someone who actually was hiking in Arizona and accidentally found out about the conference we had in October in Rio Rico, and came to that for a couple of days and then said, "Oh, my God." And so he went all the way back to London and then came back all the way to the West Coast in California for this event, and because he knew he had to be there. And so these sort of events continue. We only have a few more minutes, maybe another 5 minutes. So I don't know if you want to share what happened with the your subsequent trip and.
Well, for us,
the breast
the breast cancer. Okay. Because for us, the thing continued even at home. Like, we had events happening at home, but we won't have time to talk about it right now. So the important thing is to talk about your experience, your healing experience, Claire.
Okay. What happened is that when I was in Lac-Édouard, the following week I was having a mammogram done because they were suspecting something in the left breast.
Right.
So I had the mammogram done, and the radiologist said, "Ooh, okay, this has to be investigated. There's something there, and we're not going to pull any punches. Okay, it's not good." So what happened is I agreed to go back to Lac-Édouard with Pierre, and I was going to do the shamanic way. So what happened when I got there is that I was sitting in the kitchen, and I heard the tones.
Right.
And I told Pierre, I said, "Hey, our little sky friends are here." He says, "Great, we're going to go up, and we're going to work." Go up, and I had to lie down. And what happened is on my right leg, something was shimmying up my leg. And I asked Pierre, is there something on my leg? He said, yes. I said, well, get it off. And he said, well, it's going to the left. And then I realized he was physically seeing this on my leg. So it's going up, and I'm following this up my leg. Then I realized
the object, it looks like kind of a reddish orb, or
no. These were two rectangular, black rectangulars with object with they were black, but with sparkly white.
Like static electricity underneath.
Almost.
Oh, yes, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Right.
And it went up my leg, it went down the other leg, then it went through my private parts, uterus, okay, went up around my hip, went to my right breast, then to my left breast, went down, and it felt like a mammogram. I went,
yeah, it pressed your breasts.
It pressed it right down like a mammogram.
Right.
And I went, oh boy. And then when that was over, Pierre opened the door and he said, cuckoo, and I'm going, why are you saying cuckoo? All right. Well, because he heard them on the other side of the door.
And he saw them too. Underneath the door, there was this red-orange ray of light, and he could see people walking back and forth in front of the door.
Mm-hmm. Then there were 3 orbs that he saw. One was white, stationary, one red orb,
right,
and the other one was navy blue with red on it.
Right.
All right, so we don't have a lot of time. Annie came with me to the breast clinic.
Right.
And when I had the ultrasound, they had no idea what they were looking at. And the radiologist at the breast clinic, she was so baffled. She had no idea. And Annie, you're a witness.
Yeah. It was.
I don't
she
know what
said that she made her day, and the cells were kind of petrified, like they stopped moving, they stopped evolving.
Right.
They had no idea.
Yeah. So they sent her back home.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, very great. And we've had other experiences like this. We had a man who was in Crestone in 2009 who was a man in, I guess, in his late mid-70s, and for 40 years he had had horrible, intractable back pain and chronic, to where he could not sit. And we went on this, and we were having amazing transdimensional contact, craft, objects that were moving around the circle, touching people. And he had this experience where this energy went up his body and up his spine, and he became completely normal and limber. And I saw him a few months later. He came to another event in Asheville, North Carolina, when we did, I think, just a one-day workshop. He says, I can't believe it. It's like I'm 35 years old.
Wow.
And so, and we have another person we know who had terrible breast cancer and radical mastectomy and chemo, and they had told her she could never have a child or be pregnant. And she was visited one night by these ETs and literally was taken and put in some kind of machine, like an MRI, but it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And right after that, she got pregnant and conceived her child, who we kind of called it, miracle child.
Wow.
And so there are a lot of accounts like this, mm-hmm. actually, that we have in our team, and it's really quite beautiful. And well, I think we're almost out of time. What I do want to say is. We're going to be, we've just finalized the details for a week-long winter retreat on Marco Island, Florida, that's out in the Gulf of Mexico, way south in Florida. And we're going to be doing it from Sunday, March 6th until through Saturday, March 12th. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do a winter retreat, and we have gotten permission to use a park that is on the island that it will be closed and gated only for our group, and we'll be out there at night with the Gulf of Mexico and also the Bay that is there doing this training for people. So if people would like to come to that, we should have the information up at CSETI.org very soon. And we're going to be meeting in a really fantastic home that's on one of the canals there during the day, and then every night we're going to go out under the stars and practice these protocols and make contact and train people to be ambassadors to the universe. So you might want to be looking for that. And also we're planning to do an event in Orange County, California in February. That has not been nailed down yet, but we have found a canyon with a lake that we went to last year where we actually had an ET materialize and a voice that we recorded, and we hope to go back there. So those of you who are in that part of the United States, you may want to look to that. We're planning to do that. I think it'd be the second or third week of February in Orange County, California, which of course is Southern California. So again, I would love to thank Anael and Claire for sharing these wonderful experiences, and I'm very grateful for all of your help that you've given us over the years, both of you, and the faithful work you're doing and the incredible contact you're having. And I wanted the listeners to the World Fusion Network to hear, what is possible once people learn the concepts and the philosophy and the techniques and consciousness to make contact, the kind of amazing and beautiful things that can happen, because we are really at the time where we're going to emerge as a universal civilization, and that time has arrived. And so Anael and Claire are pioneers with all of us doing this work, and I'm very grateful to their service.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Stephen, and we're going to continue to work. It's an amazing pleasure to have contact with those beings and to advance as a civilization and be part of it. It's a great honor.
Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Claire, for sharing, and Anael for sharing. And this is Dr. Stephen Greer with Conversations with Dr. Greer. And until next time, keep looking up and pray for universal peace. God bless you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.